Hello, I'm Loren Sederstrom. I'm the host of the All Around Grant Show, and I have my co-host with me today, Larry Lanou. Well, today we're going to share with you some exclusive video of the Stillwater Bold meeting where parents could talk about the 3 proposed school closings. And no other media was there. We were the only ones there, and there were some very articulate and intelligent individuals. And they were only allowed 3 minutes to speak. Some of them, I'm going to have about 10 of these so you can understand what these people are saying. And again, this is an area that's probably a little higher socioeconomically. There isn't a lot of poverty or anything in this area, and a lot of professionals move out for the educational system.
And Lauren, I think one of the important things for us to remember is that everybody thinks we're in the city of Grant, it's a Mahtomedi school district. Truth of the matter is our city is cut in half. Half of it is in the Stillwater area, and that's why we're covering this.
Well, if we can start with the first clip, please. 343. We'll talk on the other side.
Here we go.
Community. Though I'm sure it wasn't intentional, the administration did create a divisive situation when introducing the proposal. Because bold is a yes or no question. Do you want this plan or don't you? You're either with me or you're against me. So, when we should be working together, instead we're working to prove one another wrong. What would happen if you asked different questions? What do you want your community to look like, and how do our schools fit into that vision? What are our school strengths? Do you have ideas for how to address unmet needs? Are there opportunities to partner with citizens, businesses, or local government? What are our shared values? As you look at the crowd of people in this room, I really, really hope that you don't consider us an opposition force to be defeated, because that would be a really terrible way to view your community and your fellow citizens. I look around the room and I am amazed by the incredible human social capital you have before you. We're potential volunteers and potential donors, free word-of-mouth PR and social media advertising. We're the community, and so are you. You see, I think it's a mistake to think of the school district as an independent entity separate from the rest of the community. As they say, it takes a village to raise a child. Vibrant communities have many characteristics. Good schools are one of them, but so are mixed income, multi-generational neighborhoods, locally owned businesses, a sense of place, community connections, a healthy economy, clean air and water, walkable neighborhoods, and more. Closing 3 schools might help the school district to save money and operate its other schools more efficiently, but at what cost to our communities and our quality of life? I'm sure that many, but not all, students from Marine would still excel at Stonebridge.
There. Again, she started out with, they're not asking the right questions. It's a do or die vote. Again, very articulate speaker. Let's go to the next week, if we can, control room. The next speaker also speaks very well.
I'm New North End Grants, and I'm a Withrow parent. I want to acknowledge that I value and respect the dedication and work that all of you have done. However, it is with great disappointment that I stand before you tonight. The discussion surrounding the bold proposal, as well as the delayed decision, has caused great dissension throughout the communities that house District 834. School administrators, board members, and parents have been pitted against each other over a proposal that is fundamentally flawed, grossly inaccurate, and largely short-sighted. Tonight, the supporters of 834 Voice would like for our alternative findings of fact document to be officially entered into the record of tonight's proceedings. That's a large binder in front of you, and we've also supplied you with a summary of facts. The superintendent and administration's failure of fiduciary duty on behalf of our students and communities is appalling. They have brought forth and attempted to fast-track a proposal that is not backed by any reliable research literature. It is steeped in grossly inaccurate calculations and hinges on ever-changing, historically unreliable projections. Board members, tonight, the amazing parents and community members of our great district have done the work that the administration has failed to do. We will present to you the objective and factual data to illustrate the student, academic, and fiscal effects associated with the bold proposal. Collectively, we have combed through hundreds of journal articles, financial reports, capacity studies, and enrollment projections without finding any factual information or evidence that supports this proposal. In an attempt to gain support for BOLD, the administration has made promises of increasing programming, equitable distribution of student resources, regulated class sizes, and cost savings. The administration, however, has failed to provide any sort of plan outlining how these benefits will be financed or carried out. A recent random sample community survey found that 57% of Stillwater residents either oppose or strongly oppose the bold proposal. Instead of heeding the perspective of over half of our community members, Superintendent Pontrelli has concluded that the level of misinformation and misperception that exists about BOLD has led to our lack of understanding about how BOLD will improve learning for students. The assertion is both unfounded and grossly offensive. The community members of Stillwater are active, engaged, and highly intelligent. The majority opposes BOLD because we can see through the empty promises, manufactured rationale, and blatant lies. Our finding of facts document unequivocally demonstrates through countless peer-reviewed, evidence-based research studies that the promises of BOLD will not come to fruition. In fact, BOLD will negatively impact not only the current 8,300 students of the district, but those of generations to come. Board members, tonight, you are asked to vote on a proposal presented by an administration with a history of deceptive and manipulative practices. A proposal that is not based on fact or supported by evidence. I would implore you tonight to vote no to BOLD.
There, that is very concise. They in fact did present them with a folder of the factual information. Now we're going to be delving in this a little bit later when we have a couple other clips of them, using a study to support one set of facts when they're talking about building a new school, and then go to the other side when they're supporting their BOLD proposal. So it's really interesting how they're twisting. Now, to give you the background on this, the last superintendent, they spent 1.5 years developing a Bridge to Excellence program. And when they did the bond in May, they were not going to close any schools. They were going to improve all of them. Well, they get a new superintendent at the end of July, beginning of August, and all of a sudden 1.5 years worth of work is down the drain, and she comes up with a brand new plan. Of course, basically having worked in school districts for 29 years, you realize when an administrator comes in, they dream up a new plan. It's called resume building, so they can go to the next place. But let's go
You
to
think she had had a resume? If you know anything about the school superintendent, Denise Pontrelli, it used to be Denise Wallin. She used to be in the Mahtomedi School District before, just under a new name. But so when you talk about corrupt, I guess she just
That's where she comes from.
Wherever she learned there, she brought it with her.
Oh, absolutely. So now, the school board has changed their tactics in how they're approaching these parents. They all of a sudden realize these are not illiterate bumpkins. They're highly intelligent, professional, articulate individuals. So then they keep changing the direction of how they're handling this. So if control room can play the next clip, we'll talk on the other side.
Grant. After BOLD was proposed, we were asked to provide feedback, and we did. We've received the following responses. The superintendent told us it's just a myth that promises were broken. Closing schools isn't popular. It's no surprise to us that half the residents we heard from are opposed to school closures. What is a surprise is the level of misinformation and misperception that exists about BOLD and the lack of understanding about how it would help improve learning for all of our students. Unfortunately, our feedback has been consistently ridiculed as misinformation and misunderstanding. Just once, I'd like to hear one administrator apologize for the tsunami of misinformation that's flooded our community. The district heavily promoted the $97.5 million bond by directly marketing school parents. On March 18, 2015, school district information titled "Bond Would Bring Change to Marine, Oak Park, and Withrow" was distributed. This is still on the district's website, and it states, "At Marine, it would mean upgrading the playground surfaces with a safer and more modern product. If the bond were approved, we would look at how the 6th grade play tradition would move to a 5th grade play tradition. The traditions and culture that make Marine such a unique and special school would continue for our community. At Withrow and Oak Park, schools would see the following improvements: reconfigure to a pre-K through 5 elementary school, renovate classrooms, upgrade the playgrounds, add air conditioning to Oak Park. Oak Park is to be repurposed now for central services. Administrators will be able to enjoy air conditioning that was intended for students. A gross misuse of tax dollars." In November 2014, the Long Range Committee presented their final report to the board and stated that school closures were not recommended. The former superintendent, Tom Nelson, stated school closures were not being recommended. The school board unanimously endorsed this long-range plan on February 19, 2015. The ballot presented to voters last May spoke of providing funds for the betterment of school sites and facilities, not closing schools. In an interview on KSTP Channel 5 News on January the 18th, George Hepner stated, the previous superintendent told voters he would not close any schools if they approved the levy and bond referendums. Evidence clearly shows promises were made to solicit votes. 7 months after the bond passed, BOLD was proposed. District leaders now claim school closures were always a possibility, as 25% budgetary efficiencies were needed, a claim unknown to the general public. If they knew promises to keep schools were false, then why did they advertise benefits to schools likely to close? This is the definition of deception. Distributing false political and campaign material is against the law. Anyone who intentionally participates in the preparation or dissemination of paid political advertising that is designed to promote a ballot question that is false and that the person knows is false or communicates to others with reckless disregard of whether it is false. If this deception is found to be intentional, any district leader involved would be in violation of Minnesota Statute 211B.06, a gross misdemeanor.
There we go. Well, unfortunately, the law of which he's speaking was voted unconstitutional by the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, and now it is okay to lie about situations. We had that in the city of Grant when Bob Tufte was charged with lying about the charter.
Basically, it came out that he's an adjudicated liar.
He's an adjudicated liar, and he can get by with it because the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals last September said it's okay to lie. But
It's a form of freedom of speech, Loren. Nobody's accountable for anything anymore, and that's a shame. And that's why Tom Carr and Jeff Huber, like on our charter, they went out and blatantly lied. If you go back several years in our city, they were actually held accountable, and some of them got fined for lying. And now that you took the gloves off, boy, they learned how to double down.
well, they can do a good job too. Well, the next thing we're going into about being lied to is now what they're doing is they're changing the reasons for why they're coming through with the BOLD proposal. And that's what this next segment talks about. So if we could run that control room.
Brooke, and I'm a liberal parent. When first proposed, BOLD was advertised as a financial solution to declining enrollment and population shifts. However, this changed when serious questions arose about district enrollment projections and capacity studies. Faced with these concerns, suddenly BOLD was promoted as educational strategy to improve programming and equity. Historically, rationale for consolidated comprehensive schools included economies of scale, social equality, and increased programming. It was presumed that these benefits outweighed the other educational attributes of small schools. However, it is alarming that these large school benefits have virtually never been verified through research. Recent studies that weigh large schools against small schools have found all three benefits of economies of scale, social equality, and increased programming to be either questionable or outright false. The district wants us to believe that BOLD is designed with student needs at its center. They want us to believe that by creating fewer but larger schools, our children will have more learning choices and curriculum, and that this will result in better student outcomes. To justify BOLD, the district referenced a landmark study by Douglas and Lee that suggests optimal school size is 300 to 800 students. However, when read to completion, the study actually finds optimal student achievement in elementary schools of less than 400 students. It appears that district administrators either misunderstood or misapplied the study's findings. Reliable research shows that increasing school size beyond 400 students does not result in increased curricular offerings, but rather results in decreased academic performance. To date, there is no research that links school closings to improved student achievement. In fact, research suggests that the opposite occurs and student achievement initially drops when a school is targeted for closure. A 2002 study from West Virginia showed consolidation as inflicting considerable harm to students. Students that underwent school closures received less attention, traveled longer distances to participate in school activities, and had parents that were less involved. So I have a minute left and I want to say other things. I'm a labor and delivery nurse and I'm a graduate student. In healthcare.
Okay, she goes on to say that she can't put inaccurate things in her master's degree or she'll fail. But it's really interesting how they took the data, misapplied it. they're saying, oh, 400 to 700. Well, when in fact all the studies show, and these parents were pretty sharp to come out and say, hey, wait a minute. They looked into the literature and said, hey, wait a minute. Schools of 400 or less are a better environment. They have more positive learning. By the way, folks, Withrow Elementary School is one of the top 5 elementary schools in the state of Minnesota in terms of achievement and student learning. And they want to close it down. What they should be doing is trying to model after this school. How are they so successful? How can we replicate this type of success in other schools?
I'll show you how they're going to replicate it, Loren. They want to close that down, and I don't know if our Grant City Council majority has been working with the Withrow Elementary School, but they want to take Cedar Ridge, a drug center, and put it in place of a elementary school. They want to put a drug center in there.
Well, the Cedar Ridge Residential Chemical Dependency Treatment Center, we just went through large hearings over that, and because they're having a problem with walk-offs. I mean, they just walk off, they're gone, and
Actually, Loren, just recently, while Withrow was having a fundraiser, they had a walk-off, showed up at the Withrow ballroom over there and was back in there juggling knives, somebody says in there. But they had to come and take them out. I don't believe it got reported, so I believe that was a conditional use violation. We'll have to look into it and start that clock over.
Yeah, that it's just unbelievable. Of course, the Meridian could save hundreds of thousands of dollars buying a school. You know, because it's already got the kitchen, it's got a gym, it isn't that hard to repurpose the classrooms into dorms. Hey, they could save hundreds of thousands, and they already got the green light from our mayor, you know, and the majority. They just rubber stamp stuff. So, it's interesting. Well, let's go to the next clip. I believe this is Bill Wright. If we could have that, please.
$97.5 million bond referendum to the voters. This board had to prove to the Minnesota Department of Education that the construction projects it wanted to pursue were necessary and cost-effective. That process is known as the review and comment process. Minnesota Statute 123B71 Subdivision 9 provides a long laundry list of information that you are required to provide to the Department of Education. It included, among many things, an assessment of the extent to which alternate facilities were available in the district and student enrollment projections for the next 5 years. Your proposal, frankly, waxed rhapsodic about the extensive research and consideration that you put into your plan. Quote, over the past year, a 34-member team has been in planning with district administration and consultants, looking at enrollment trends, demographic changes, student learning needs, community needs, evolving curriculum and program changes, and ongoing conditions of facilities and site needs, end quote. The Long Range Facility Planning Committee is described as, quote, having centered its work on determining the adequacy and capacity of all facilities in the school district, end quote. Your proposal also specifically cited the February 26, 2014 demographic study by Hazel Reinhardt as projecting a, quote, stable to moderate growth in student enrollment. You did not disclose in your proposal that you intended to close schools or that closure of schools was even a remote possibility. To the contrary, commitments were made to upgrade facilities at every district elementary school, including Withrow Marine and Oak Park. Some board members and community staff have recently stated it was common knowledge that school closures have long been, quote, on the table. You had a statutory obligation to disclose relevant information to the Minnesota Department of Education, and you made specific representations about your need for capacity and your plans to upgrade all existing elementary schools. Your failure to disclose the possibility of school closures in that proposal was at best grossly misleading. And now, only months after the referendum, your superintendent wants you to close more than a quarter of all district elementary schools. The reason, a quote, recent capacity study. That is untrue. The demographic information was not new. You presented the Hazel Reinhardt study and the long-range facility report to MDE to support your claim that there was a need for more capacity and to build a $25 million elementary school. That's right. If you adopt BOLD, you will be using the same studies and information that you presented to the Department of Education to support the exact opposite conclusion. Have fun explaining that to Dr. Caselius. The fact that you changed superintendent...
Talking out of both sides of their mouth, perhaps? You know, the other interesting thing about the school they're proposing is it's going to be on the south side of I-94,
94.
where that's where that new gold line or blue line or pink line, whatever is going to run.
Light rail.
Light rail, so they can send all the inner city kids out from St. Paul, which of course we know the kind of nightmare they're having in St. Paul.
Actually, it goes deeper than that, Lauren.
Well, they're not also not putting the school, they should redraw the boundary lines to 94, and they should be putting that school in the
Lake
middle
Elmo,
of this, in Lake Elmo,
1800.
where the 1,700 new homes are being built. There's 7 communities going in, there are 7 developments. That's where you should be putting the school so the kids can walk. It's crazy.
Save the busing. Why do we want to funnel them up Manning and across the highway to get there? How? No kid's going to be able to get to that school without being trucked.
I'm glad you mentioned busing, because this school district in their budget has $3.5 million to build a bus garage for buses that they don't own. They're run by a separate vendor. How insane is that? If the guy wants his bus garage, he better build it himself.
Kind of like the ice arena that Mayor Carr is trying to put a private hockey arena on public school property to avoid paying taxes. Same thing.
It is, they're talking about saving $1.2 million by closing these schools, which probably will never happen, but they're shelling out $3.5 million for a bus garage. I cannot understand the logic. I mean, there is no logic in that. It is just absolutely crazy. And again, they should, and I know the districts don't want to do that, they should change the boundary of Stillwater to the south side of 94 so that isn't dividing it up. Because there's nothing on the south side of 94. That's Woodbury. It would be just ceding a small fraction of their territory, and geographically it would make much more sense.
That's why they're putting that new elementary school within 3 miles of an existing elementary. That means if they were to change the boundaries, that would force the South Washington County to go get a bond and pay for that new school. It's a blocking mechanism. It's got nothing to do with the education of your kids. And the reason they're putting it over there is because they want the income from Target and Sam's Club and whatever else is over there. It's follow the money. It's not what's best for the kids.
Absolutely. Okay, now I misspoke last time. Now we're going to have Bill Wright get up and speak. And he's an excellent speaker. So let's play the next clip.
Tonight you have heard and will continue to hear facts and evidence for why the Bull proposal is not the solution this district needs. I don't, however, think that anyone is really under the impression that these facts will radically alter anyone's decision or worldview at this point. Why? Well, first, because a lot of these people have been sharing these facts since this proposal first came out. They worked very hard to find. Second, most importantly, because this proposal has been from the beginning a proposal about a belief system that this superintendent, her administration, and some members of the board hold. When it comes to beliefs, facts often get in the way. They are things to conquer or ignore or misrepresent, not necessarily clues to follow. In fact, several experiments show that when a person's belief system is challenged, rather than seek to perhaps modify those beliefs, they take flight to a land where facts do not matter. I think we are at this point in this discussion, and have been for a long time actually. No evidence, no alternatives, no facts. Nothing at this point is going to convince the administration that their ideology is not correct, that their solution is best. This has been pretty clear to me. They are talking and spinning so loudly that there is no ability or room for them to listen. To anything really. Any dissenters to their belief system have been labeled as too emotional, lacking in any understanding, a niche group just going through the stages of grief about their community's closing. And always there was an appeal to the silent majority. I guess that is what you do when facts fail you. You label people and you appeal to fiction. Because a survey last week verified such a majority does not in fact exist. 57% opposed, 39% support. That is a landslide in every sense of the term. It didn't seem to matter, though, to the administration, who once again flew to the land where facts and data and information don't necessarily matter if they challenge their worldview, and in which the engaged community is not an opportunity to make better decisions, but is too stupid to understand what's best for them. You are now left with no excuse, in my opinion. You have the facts, you have information from the community. If you vote yes, you'll know it's because simply that is what you want to do, that is what your belief system is. You know better. Despite all the evidence to the contrary, despite parents, entire community, city leaders, state representatives, and the majority of this district, that is what you will choose to do. I hope that's not the case. Lastly, why go through this? Why do the token 3 minutes if our facts, if we show what we share tonight, really will not change worldviews? I think sometimes facts help us set the record straight and give credit where credit is due. Besides having this proposal pit community against community, I think it has also undercut the great work that staff and teachers have done at Marine, Withrow, and Oak Park elementary schools. We've explained the success of these schools away as unfair spending levels, smaller class sizes, or other unfair advantages. Not true. The magic that these staff and teachers in partnership with the community have been able to create is truly there. I hope you see it. And let me as a parent say what the administration has failed to say to those staff members and teachers. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the great work you've done.
Again, I want to remind you folks that Withrow is one of the top 5 performing elementary schools in the state. Again, they should be trying to replicate these successes, but they're obviously not. They have their own agenda. As I've seen many times, I have 29 years in education, when some new person comes in the door, they have to make their mark, come into their new plans, their new agendas, and so they can throw it on their resume, whatever brilliant idea they're coming up with, and it's self-aggrandizement. And I think...
Loren, maybe you can kind of touch on, that was Bill Wright that was up there, and he met with the assistant Stillwater superintendent, and you kind of tell him, you know, the warm reception he got there?
Well, yeah, they had quite an interesting situation where he was, it got pretty vocal, I guess, and...
well, tell him what they accused him of. I mean, of coming in to start.
Well, I don't remember.
Well, his comment was, "Are you here to start a pissing match?"
Oh, yeah, that, I'm sorry.
And folks, listen to that guy. I've listened to him several times. He comes very well prepared, very well educated, and for a school superintendent to dismiss him, I mean, it's amazing.
Yes, it is. Well, now we're going to shift gears a little bit. The next speaker is going to talk about the mergers of they had a petition, got enough signatures to consider the merging of Stillwater and Mahtomedi schools, and this lady will be talking about that. So if you could play that next control room.
I am a Withrow parent and a home resident of the Mahtomedi School District. First, I want to address one of the main issues of bold. The question is, does having larger elementary schools with more support services produce better student outcomes than small, traditional community schools? At a recent community meeting held at Withrow Elementary, Superintendent Pontrelli cited the newly constructed large Wildwood Elementary School in the Mahtomedi School District as being a model producing positive student outcomes. However, this new elementary school has only been open for 2.5 years and reviews are mixed. In 2014, it was reported by the White Bear Press that second grade boys in the new Wildwood Elementary had a 20-point decrease in math test scores. One of the reasons given was they couldn't read the math questions. The principal of Wildwood Elementary, Mark Hamry, has gone to the Mahtomedi School Board numerous times in an effort to get the school district to reduce class sizes at Wildwood. Bigger is not always better. Positive performance student outcomes at the new Wildwood Elementary are questionable at best. It was also noted that a sizable achievement gap existed in Mahtomedi schools between white and minority students, even with only one school choice. Second, tonight I want to make everyone aware of a very important public hearing coming up. The public hearing is to discuss the possible consolidation of the...
He's talking about the consolidation, the petition I was talking about. And we can graphically show you this. If control room could put up number 17. You can see the shaded in area with the lines. That is Mahtomedi. The pink is Stillwater School District. So you can see how neat of a fit it would be. And what it would actually do, it would level out the schools very evenly in terms of enrollment. It would work just wonderful. So that's that's what this proposed.
It would shorten the bus rides. We wouldn't be shipping them on the other side of 94 and getting in the middle of congestion.
Or the poor kids from from up in Marina and St. Croix, they ride a bus for a half an hour to begin with. Then they're going to have to ride another 20 minutes down to Stillwater. That's 2 hours just about for the kids, for a first grader on a bus. That's absolutely ridiculous. Okay, now if we can have picture number 12 up. This shows the level of numbers of students for both Stillwater and Mahtomedi. If you look, Stillwater is 12 with a little over 8,000, and Mahtomedi is number 14 with 3,200. Now remember, 1/3 of these students in Mahtomedi are open enrolled, so about 1,100. So they only have about 2,100 actual
2,200, yep.
21 to 2,200 locally enrolled students. That's how many people are coming in. Okay, now the significance of that is Mahtomedi sends them a check for $2.3 million every year for their open enrolled students, the ones they're losing. In addition, Stillwater is running their food program, also adding to their special ed program and providing a number of other things. Okay, now if we go to 13, okay, now see if they were combined, look at Stillwater and Mahtomedi combined district would be in the middle. They would be under South Washington, Osseo, Rosemont, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Anoka, Hennepin. But above Mounds View, North St. Paul, Oakdale, Bloomington, Minnetonka, White Bear Lake, their neighbor, and Forest Lake. So it's a relatively, it wouldn't be overwhelming. They could use existing facilities.
Well, you'd save minimum a couple $1 million just in administrative
Well,
costs.
that's what we're going to, let's go to number 15 now. Okay, South Washington pays $251 per pupil. Stillwater pays $428, and Mahtomedi pays $581. If they would combine the district level administration, they'd receive $1 to $2 million to spend. And if we can go to the next one, number 16, okay, this is administration costs. Mahtomedi spends almost $2 million, $1,916,000 in administration. Stillwater spends $3,660,000. You could cut that. That's $5.5 million, folks. You could cut that in half. You could save $2.5 million at least a year to be going towards students.
And you could keep those schools open.
Now, the slide I don't have is talking about specific, and you can come back to me now, specific costs. The superintendent, without his perks, makes in Mahtomedi $175,000. One of the curriculum directors makes $158,000 a year. You're looking at that top-heavy $2 million. Look at how top-heavy that budget is. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. You know, elementary principals are making $125,000 a year. Now, that's not counting benefits. You want to add benefits, add another 20% to that. Plus,
Probably
I believe
closer to 30.
the superintendent, I think, also gets a car and some other perks like that. So what I'm saying is these school districts are so close, it would make sense to merge them. They have overcrowding at Wildwood. Well, gee whiz, there's a few slots up at Withrow. They could fill that in very well, and that would work quite well. So what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, is this makes a lot of sense, but I'll tell you right now, both school boards are against it. And again, let's go down the open enrollment track. On one of the last shows, I showed aired the clip from Channel 5 about was it the Woodbury coach that got fired because there was a student athlete that was playing from out of district, and they were stripped of 14 wins. Again, you have to understand the numbers game, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, you see how many, there's 8,000 students in Mahtomedi, and there's 3,000 there's 8,000 in Stillwater, 3,000 in Mahtomedi. If Johnny wants to play football, the numbers just work better if he's going to a 3,000 school instead of a 8,000 district. I mean, that's just the way it is. There's, 30 kids on a football team, or 35?
Yep, 35.
35. So if you're talking about a chance of 35 out of 1,000 or 1,500 as opposed to 35 out of 600, which numbers are better? obviously, so a lot of kids, if Johnny can't make it to Stillwater, he's going to go to Mahtomedi. And it's just not football, ladies and gentlemen. One of the things you have to realize is for students playing football or band or theater, the high school may be the last chance for them to, because obviously less than 1/10 to 1% of people ever make it, for example, to professional football. It's their last hurrah. That's what high school is. So we should be giving local students the chance for their last hurrah, not shipping people in from other districts to steal those opportunities from our local children. And I don't care if it's band, if it's theater, if it's sports, hockey, basketball, football, baseball, track, gymnastics.
Well, Loren,
these are local opportunities that kids, and if you don't get it in high school, you're never going to get again.
Yeah, Loren, you were on the chair of the Planning Commission when Mahtomedi came in front of us, and remember they had to have an emergency meeting to approve that site. And why was it? So they could start tearing out the tennis courts and get the baseball stadium going. Folks, if you really think it's about academics, actually, I remember one of the comments the parents said their son was struggling in math in 5th grade, and their solution was, well, you know, maybe when he gets into middle school in 6th grade, maybe you can just kind of, and this was early in the year, they told him, just write out this year, and maybe he can get more help when he goes into 6th grade into the middle school. That's their solution, folks, for overcrowding classrooms.
So this would, I think the merger would be an excellent fit. It would bring economies of scale that they're talking about, you know. Get rid of the administration. You could save it by 50%. And you put $3 million into a school district, that's going to cover what? 30, 40 teachers?
Yep.
And counselors, and that's one of the things we need more of. We need more help. The other thing that's interesting about this thing in Mahtomedi, or the Stillwater, the Bowl, they're talking about hiding behind equity. And that's the situation where they're mainstreaming kids, okay? Well, I guess nothing's wrong with mainstreaming per se, but you have to realize it's like a teeter-totter. You put too many special ed kids in one class, and it goes down. I saw it happen. I taught for 29 years. I would usually have one special ed student in my marketing class. They obviously couldn't do it, but it was more social development because they would have to rise to fit the other 26 kids. Now, I also, the last few years, I was in special ed work experience / both of them. And one of my assignments for one semester, because they were shorthanded, was to help out in a biology class. Bud Grant's daughter was teaching a wildlife biology course. And they placed so many kids, 6 or 7 kids, in her class. The middle of the year, she quit because it basically ruined it. You know, the problem with mainstreaming, you can't pretend a kid doesn't have a problem. You have to take care of the problem. If he needs special remediation, special discipline, whatever it is, that's what he needs. And you can't throw him in with a classroom full of kids and pretend he doesn't have a problem. And that's what these people are talking about. Oh, let's mainstream more kids. Well, if they need special help, give them special help. Just don't throw them in a classroom and pretend that they don't have a problem. So, okay, let's go. We talked about the salaries. Let's go on to the next clip if we can. 350.
201 Rose Street, Marina on St. Croix, Minnesota. Chairman Hepner, fellow board members, I'm not here tonight to ask you to vote against the bold proposal because it's wrong. In fact, if you believe that it's the best decision for the district, I can probably accept that. However, believing this is the best decision for our district is precisely why you should vote no tonight. One of the main problems I see is the difference between fact and perception. In this case, like it or not, perception is the reality. Your constituents have many perceptions about this proposal, like levying bond promises that were broken, unethical conflicts of interest, data used to make this decision that is misleading and manipulated, or that you don't want to listen when listening sessions are held as far away from as possible from affected communities. There are many more perceptions that I could share about money that could be saved or retaining students or numbers that don't add up, but I think you get my point. If you believe that this is the right decision for the district tonight, you need to vote no. The reality is that our district is being torn apart. The way this proposal has been handled has deeply divided our community like never before, not just from the 3 schools you're considering closing, but the entire Stillwater community from Afton to Marine. The damage from this process has already begun. The reality is people are going to leave this district even if you hope they won't. And who would come back to open enroll their child in this district after this very public display of our dirty laundry that is being talked about around the Twin Cities? This is our reality, and to deny it or think that after the vote things would have sort of returned to normal is irresponsible. If you believe this is the right decision for our district, you need to vote no tonight and ask for a transparent plan that involves the community. The community wants to be involved. There are a lot of really smart people that live in our community with tremendous skill sets, and they want to be used as a resource. I understand a no vote tonight slows down the process, but if you've done any research in bringing about change to a large organization, you know it takes time and patience.
There. Well, again, they're hitting on the misleading information, where they're going with that. I think it's just hard to imagine that they would ignore geography in closing schools, and also the schools that are doing so well. That's called the lowest common denominator theory. If you take the top ones, bring them into the bottom, we can dumb everybody down, and the average sinks.
Yep.
That's just lowest common, and that just doesn't make any sense. And if they think these parents are so outraged, and they're also highly mobile, they're young professionals, they're going to move.
They moved into this district because of the quality education.
And they're going to move right back out.
You know, and they are, there's a lot of lawsuits being started right now. All that's done is just, you know, who's going to win in this thing? The attorneys.
That's right, when you go to court.
When they talked about transparency, folks, transparency is just it's a good campaign slogan. Honestly, their decision was made well before the meeting.
Well, what I can't understand is how they spend 1.5 years developing a plan, and it's been voted on, we're going forward right before they implement it. A new superintendent comes in, says, oh, we don't want that anymore, let's do something new. And they say they do all this research. Then they quote the research both ways. One, to get a new school built where it shouldn't be built. And then they use the same stuff, the same exact reasons to close 3 schools that are highly performing. It doesn't make any sense. But again, we're going back to resume building. That's what they're doing. So let's go to the next one, if we could. Next clip, and we'll talk on the other side.
My name is Sarah Stillwater, and I live at 11080 Penfield Avenue North in Stillwater Township. You all have got yourselves in a real pickle. On the one hand, if you vote yes tonight, you will be going against the wishes of the majority of the people in this entire community, according to your own survey. In addition, you will dishonor the request from multiple mayors, city councils, state senators, local businesses, and at least 1 fire chief. You would be negligent in your duty to fulfill the promises that were made when we all voted for the bond just last May, and you will face a messy lawsuit because of that. By voting yes on this proposal, you will take this district further down a path of distrust, destruction, confusion, and chaos. On the other hand, if you vote no, you will look like you don't support your brand new administration. These folks have been working very, very hard rolling this thing out to the public. A lot of time and money and effort has gone into trying to shut down our schools. The thing is, closing schools is supposed to be the absolute last resort, when there's just not any other way to make it work. The evidence is supposed to be painfully obvious to everyone that there is just no other way forward. And that simply is not the case here. We do not have a declining population. We have declining enrollment. And that means you all have not been doing a good job of keeping kids in our schools. The reasons you give for the closures are all related to poor management. And the situation we're in right now is the result of too many years of poor leadership. Year after year of shrinking budgets and changes in administration and shrinking enrollments has stressed everyone out. But enough is enough. You can't just keep cutting your way out of this. When you find yourself down in a hole, you gotta stop digging. At some point, you have to find your way out of the hole. Climb up, build up, fix up, rise up, find the way out. This is what the staff and community members are asking for based on some of the focus group responses. As a sample, they've said, please just support us. There have been missteps. Develop a long-term plan. Solidify processes so we don't continue to default to the whims of whoever is in charge. Superintendent Pontrelli, you just got here. We need new leadership that will help settle things down and take us in a more positive direction and help us heal from years of decline in cuts and stress. We haven't even had a chance to get to know you. Why have you taken our school district on this terrible journey?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. And again, it is related to some bad management. Granted, they're shrinking budgets, but have you ever seen them not add more administrators? I mean, it's taking up more and more of the school budget, and I think they need to slim some of that down. And principals make a lot of money.
Loren, if you look at a lot of other school districts, Mahtomedi has 4 schools, and we have a superintendent, obviously. A lot of your other surrounding districts have 22, 25, 15. It'd be very easy for Stillwater to absorb that and use that funding to put it back into education.
Well, Mahtomedi superintendent makes more money than the Stillwater superintendent, and I believe Stillwater has 20 or 22 schools that they're running. So if you look at per capita per school, Mark Larson's getting $50,000 a school, where the other guy is probably getting about $12,000. So it's it does make sense, and they do a lot of hype. One of the things they've done to attract students is they say how well they are. Well, I don't know if you folks have heard of something called an alternate learning center. Well, that is for high school dropouts. That's the last step. In other words, if you can't make it in a high school, you can go to the alternate learning center, and it's free and it's open, and you can come and do independent projects. And I remember once we had some people speaking and coming to us and saying, well, but the student doesn't like doing this type of work, and I guess it was an English teacher. The assignment is Shakespeare and this student doesn't like it. Well, couldn't he draw some cartoons about Snoopy? That would solve his literature needs. So again, Mahtomedi has sent their alternate learning center over to 916.
Out of district.
So it's out of district. So guess what? They don't average their grades in. They don't average their achievements or anything else. How convenient. Again, you've heard this old saying, figures lie and liars figure. Gee whiz. They're on a rabid recruitment attempt at Mahtomedi to keep the thing going. So anyway, that wraps that up. The one last thought that I wanted to that I didn't have a clip on because we had too many clips. A woman came up and said there's 2 schools with all these open areas for learning where there's no classroom walls. And she said 90% of the students function better in a structured classroom situation. 10% or fewer are open for this willy-nilly, Looney Tune stuff where you're self-directed learner. Baloney. You need to be directed to learning. I've been in education for 29 years, and structure is very important in education. But now we're going to shift gears. We're going to talk a little bit about the city of Grant. We have a couple clips from the last city council meeting. And of course, as some of you may know, one of the major topics in the city of Grant is roads. We have about 60 miles of road. Half are asphalt and half are dirt, and they're falling apart, and they're refusing to fix them. And if we could play this next clip, please, 352, we'll talk on the other side.
A motion to form a Blue Ribbon Road Commission to address our failing infrastructure and seek funding mechanisms to repair our road.
Second.
Okay, first of all, it's not on the agenda.
We still have a motion being made.
Okay, thanks. Secondly, that's a big topic. I have no supporting documentation. I have nothing from you. You just bring this up and you just want to vote on it.
Yeah.
There we go. Again,
Actually, we've been talking about it for years. For 30 years, we've been talking about roads. And we've had committees. He's not going to fix your roads till he brings in sewer and water. That's bottom line. But
well, just like I can recite a couple examples. Down by Hools, I believe that's Keats, isn't it?
yep.
I went and got a bid to do the whole thing at once for $110,000, and absolutely not. We're going to do a third of it at a time, and this is in our budget. The other interesting thing that's happening is next summer, this county is putting a roundabout in at 96 in Manning. Well, that's going to be totally shut down. The natural shortcut is McCusick, and any of you who have been down McCusick, the road is falling apart. I came in with a bid for about, and I worked with the engineer on this, so it wasn't a wild hair that I had somewhere. I worked with the engineer, and he felt to do the major patch like is in front of the mayor's house, where they grind down, fill the pothole, then put a small overlay, then put an inch and a half of wear coat on that.
Put on concrete.
Okay.
That's what you're supposed to do.
And for $200,000, they could have done the whole road. Granted, it's not a rebuild that's good for 30 years, but it's good for 10 to 12 years. But when you're bleeding profusely, if you don't have a Band-Aid, a baby diaper will work, or somebody's T-shirt. You know, you got to stop the bleeding. And that's the proposals I've come with. The last proposal I came with is Mahtomedi is going to have a lot of extra asphalt millings because they're doing their roads. I suggested to them, for the price of the $30,000 that they spent every year patching McCusick Road, they could spend that towards spreading asphalt millings over it. They've done it on Ideal Avenue and it works well. If they just put some tar down for a bond, put the millings down, it would bond it somewhat. And granted, it's a temporary fix, but it's better than doing patching that doesn't take and doesn't
Take
do.
10 years of patching and it'll pay to completely do the road properly. And that's why we had a Blue Ribbon Road Committee that our mayor dismissed without as much as a thank you.
Yep, they don't want it. I mean, they're spending $25,000 to $30,000 a year for 10 years. That's $250,000 to $300,000. My solution would have spent $200,000 and got 10 to 12 years out of it. But so much for the roads. Okay, now we're going to play the next clip if we could.
If I'd like to, Mayor, you said, why don't I play in your sandbox?
Yep.
Let me just take a
Our
second.
sandbox,
Or
sorry.
our sandbox. And it's because currently our sandbox is dirty. Currently, the city of Grant is being reviewed for auditing irregularities and procedures by the Minnesota State Auditor's Office. Currently, the city of Grant is being investigated by the Minnesota IPAD Investigative Analysis Policy Division for 2 recent open meeting violations that have been filed. Currently, Councilman Jeff Huber is being investigated by the Washington County Sheriff's Office for prosecution for filing a false police report and entrapment. Okay. Currently, I'm aware that there's pending ethics complaint to be filed against City Attorney Nick Vivian with the Lawyers Professional Responsibility Board. Why don't we play in your dirt, in your sandbox? We don't want to get dirty.
Wow.
Amazing, isn't it? Folks, this is what's going on currently, and it's all in the middle of being looked into right now. You're going to see the mayor. He says, well, you can't put it out, it wasn't on the agenda. Truth of the matter is, Loren, we send in good documentation, road committees and everything to put on the agenda. It can't get put it on there. So I'm just going to bring the motions forward. They're not going to stop my ability to operate in your behalf.
It's going to be interesting because at the last city council meeting, and I didn't show a clip of this because I didn't feel it was necessary, I asked to be put on the agenda to discuss McCusick Road being covered with those millings. And we're going to see if that goes on. But generally, we have no input. We can't take things off the consent agenda, which by Robert's Rules of Order, it takes one individual to take something off the consent agenda. They
Loren,
say we have to have a second.
Loren. It's not by Robert's rules. It's our own city procedures, which they have adopted. I held it up. I read it to them right off there, and they still completely ignore it. That's why I said we're either operating out of the gunfight of the OK Corral and it being orchestrated by the Three Stooges.
Well, there's also, they're involved in a lot of litigation, spurious. And I think you have some numbers here on litigation, if you could go
Actually,
through those.
I'll kind of go, just our monthly prosecution, and I'm going to just call it like it is, folks. I don't care about being politically correct. We call him Double Click Nick. He's our city attorney. We got some figures up there. Every month, you're billed for $1,587 for prosecution. Whether he goes to court or there's any prosecution, you're just automatically getting billed. So when he went over 50% of the budget last year, they still paid him for doing nothing, and then they let him go over budget.
Well, he had a $35,000 budget last year, and I believe it ended up just slightly under 80. Am I not correct?
Yeah, about 70 some. And I just went recently, looked at some billings that have come through there. To attend city council meetings, he's charging $875.
Let me add, considering the last meeting was an hour and 18 minutes, that's
a pretty good rate.
$600-700 an hour.
He's got another one, prepare for a city council meeting. In other words, he's got to get ready to come to it. So he's got charges of $525 to prepare for a city council meeting.
I wonder if he gets paid for shaving and taking a shower.
I don't know, but we do also have staff meetings, and he gets paid to go to staff meetings. And folks, as a councilman, I've never seen a single document or summary of a staff meeting. Now, if he's charging $525, and we know that 170, that's got to be about 3.5, at least 3 hours there.
He's getting about $3,500 a month to go to be our attorney. That's what it is. Ballpark $3,500 if he works or he doesn't work. Now, if he does something, then the meter really starts clicking, you know?
Right, and it shows when you see their invoices. Folks, if they're charging that just for monthly, right there, he's got roughly about $2,000, $1,500 to $2,000 just to come to your city council meeting and attend staff meetings. We still have a city planner, we still have a city engineer, and they go to these staff meetings, right? So I don't know what we're getting for our staff meetings. And Loren, have you ever, number one, I've asked to attend to them and to have input, and we're not allowed to attend them. I've asked for the minutes and summary. I've never saw that. So folks, you're getting fleeced. And you know what? It's not showing up in blacktop. I'd rather show it where we have something concrete.
Well, it's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. Now, next month, we're going to be bringing you some more highlights. I have some highlights I will have of the meeting where they're talking about the merger that isn't going through between Mahtomedi. I will also have some more highlights from the next city council meeting, which should be interesting. And we will keep you updated on some of the legal aspects of things that are going on. There's a lot of legal activity being pursued by the city. Why they want to sue so many people, I don't know, but evidently...
If you supported the charter and you look at the invoices for the charter and anybody that supported the charter, you add those up, we got well over $100,000 just in legal costs for anybody that supported the charter. Folks, we probably could have fixed McCusick before the turnabout comes in, and so we could use that properly. And you know, it's because of Blue Ribbon Road Committee, and I asked to bring that back. We should have been talking to the county and asked them if they'd help supplement that, just as we did in Goodview. The county paid portion of it, other surrounding cities paid portion of it, and we got a project done. Look at our mayor, he doesn't even want to talk about it.
Well, not only that, you look at the billings for mowing the road ditches and brushing in January and February. I don't know about your lawns, folks, but my grass doesn't seem to grow very well in January and February, and I normally don't have to cut it. So why do we have to bill for cutting the roadside ditches?
That's why the state auditor's looking at it. Wait till we get our snow plowing bill for the 4th of July. It's coming, folks.
Thank you for joining us today, and come back next time, and we'll help you find what's in all around Grant.